They had 2 Friday nights. They were running all weekend, not just those 2. They had a
I don't know what. Well,
that happened Saturday at 10.
Saturday morning. I knew it was out.
I was there.
I didn't hear about it.
They had more of that.
My wife kept me cleaning all weekend. It was spring cleaning. I'm very pleased with that.
Hereby call the city regular order meeting to order Monday, April 18th. This time we will make personal reflection. I look to direction of the agenda. I look for council direction of the agenda.
The agenda dated 2018.
Seconder. Council Buckingham. Any discussion? Not seeing any, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to number 4, approval of minutes, previous direction. Council Buckingham.
The regular council minutes dated April 2018.
Seconder. Council Torres. Any comments or questions?
Thank you. 7.1.1, page 7, package, it refers to property taxable assessment file. I just wanted that explanation if the public would understand it. I know what it meant, but I was here. I had to read it three times connection. I just wondered if that should be cleared up a little bit, the public can understand what we're saying.
Are you proposing should we 2018 tax bill rate, Council?
Maybe it's okay. Just connect them.
Yeah. Vital number is there. We could add 20. We agreed on 2018 property tax, no actual assessment bylaw.
So noted.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? All in favor of no leaders, changes? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to item number 5, business rights.
Cover already.
That's great. Number 6, public presentation. Noted. We have public hearing scheduled 2 p.m. So we will pass item number 7 on the agenda, which is dealing with the public hearings, bylaws, and move on to agenda item number 8 is new business, and 8.1 bylaws.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Your Worship.
First, we have hearing bylaw 31-31- community management bylaw 31-20 Council members brought forth previously at GTCN council meetings for dealing with, and as part of the legislative piece of that work, we're asking to repeal the bylaws. It's important to note that if the bylaw was repealed, if the bylaw is repealed, it does not take effect until the 31st of December.
Questions, comments, administration?
Sorry, Your Worship. Should be noted, we are asking for the bylaw to be repealed in its entirety today, so we're asking for the 3 readings to repeal the bylaw.
Counselor.
Is there a particular reason that it would have to go through? I understand that it probably doesn't make a difference at the end of the day. I don't think it's going to change anything that we do, will it? Whether it was alternate, or another day, just so that it goes through the normal process of someone having to come and speak on that really felt strongly one way or another after first reading.
No, we usually don't have this. Of course, it's entirely up to council.
And also to note that it is a rewrite. It's not that we're passing a new bylaw.
That's right.
Thank you, that was a thing to say for us, as opportunities that we're doing as we are, perhaps this is where it gets a little further, and maybe more people would like to speak to it, so just something to think about, because if you're not really tuned in and watching every day, you might miss this, and it's been a long-standing committee of the downtown, so I would prefer myself to give a little longer time on this, since there is no hurry, since it's not going to be repealed until the end of the year, regardless of our decision today.
Any other comments, questions?
Is there any advantage with doing it all today?
It just cleans up that part of the deck.
We've had a lot of discussions around this matter, and that's why we felt it was easier to move forward in this way, which we did. But once again, that's council's work.
And I guess the other part of it is that the bid association at this point has already declared their plans and their status, so that's the other part too. That's not going to change anything from that perspective either. So if theirs was up in the air, I would say there would be some significance in terms of waiting, but they've already declared publicly that they're done. So I'm not sure what's left to change relative to that.
Just one more thing from my end. My general release all at once. Those are the only circumstances in my mind that really, has to put our foot to the gas pedal and get it done. Hudson is one of them. So I guess we'll see how it goes through second reading.
I want to jump in for a discussion. I agree with Councilor. When these boards things, the development is made, went through it, having the discussion in the chamber, discussion in the community, covered by the media, very well. Just give them a final what's happening, tried to rush anything. It is a process to clean up as we can at the neck, as we refer to it as, to ensure that bills don't get lost. But I think that if we give this 2 more weeks or so, it's not going to be the end of the world. My thoughts. But I will leave that to the direction of council as well. I'll vote accordingly. So, Councillor Fletcher.
My understanding is that we're taking on some of the roles, we're already made plans to take on some of the roles that we would normally do at this point, part of our operational budget. So, again, I'm just thinking that there are other pieces we put in motion as well, assuming this is going to be repealed. But I'm just trying to think all the pros and cons that are on the deck relative to this. But we've sort of, I think, mentally made the decision that this is what's going to happen because we've already put in our budget that we're going to go and do the watering and plants and those other things. So, I don't know. I guess if we're already planning and we're doing it, but from the honoring the process, I understand that part of it. It just seems like it's kind of a done deal.
Just for clarity, this is done with council's, council must agree completely. So if you look at the third motion that council unanimously consent to read bylaw 15-2018 being the bylaw to repeal the downtown business district bylaw for a third time, if that does not pass unanimously, then it could not be read a third time. Just so council's aware of the process.
Sorry, I just want to clarify that, because my understanding was if the second reading wasn't unanimous, it would go to third reading.
If the bylaws it's defeated, you have to read.
I'm saying just if it was not unanimous, then you would do the third one.
That's correct. That's correct. If what I just said, if you read it the first time, repeal the second time, repeal it, and the third motion council unanimously agreed. And if they don't unanimously agree, that's not that third reader is not.
Councillor Baker.
Well, you were trying to back to the Hamilton district case. The reasoning is the way it is, the way they are, first, second, third reading. We have a lot of layers in downtown core. There's the leasing, renting, building a lot of things. And I'm not sure how the words got out there to the owners. And on the agenda, we're read down development. So there's a whole bunch of stuff downtown. And I have to agree with Councilors. The first reading isn't going to make any difference. We can have next week, we can have third reading. But first reading, it gets into the system, and all building owners should be aware of what's going on. And I guess that's why the process is in place in the first place.
So it's now going to be confirmation of letters sent out to owners of the downtown AGM or the AGM.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd have to get that information from you as advising that will occur it was actually in March. All the business owners were given that notice. The vote at the AGM was fairly unanimous, I believe.
2022. So would you say that as an which is businesses downtown to give feedback with regards to this topic?
Based on my personal opinion, there was significant growth.
And have we taken financial responsibility in terms of administrating for the bid as have we taken anything over for that?
That's something that we're still in the process of sorting out, but ultimately, yes, the city will be taking over that very quickly.
And have we financially made commitments so that we will have people watering those plants downtown this summer?
We have worked with our operations team to look at putting resources in downtown to continue the operations.
So these processes are already in place, and then it's a repeal of a bylaw. Well, let's just vote.
I'll make a motion. The council grant bylaw 15-2018 being a bylaw to repeal the downtown business district bylaws, first reading.
Second. Councilor Baker. Any further discussion? Councilor Buckingham.
Just wanted to be clear now that we've had this discussion with the councilor. I don't think there's any illusion that we didn't give enough time we don't make it too much, we give everybody else, and I think I like the process the way it is. But we did do it, we should have done to this point.
Council, any other comments before we call for the question? All in favor? Opposed, carried. Look for council's direction, second recommendation. Councilor Rowe.
Council Brown, bylaw 2018-018, bylaw to be the down to business decided by the second reading.
Seconded. Councilor. Any further questions or comments? Not seeing any. All in favor? Opposed. So it is defeated.
Just for the process, Marshall, that bylaw has been defeated. And no longer on the rules.
Sorry. It just didn't go unanimously.
No. You defeated the second reading. That means that bylaw.
We're coming back. Well,
that bylaw.
Okay.
Ever. Right? Is that correct?
What are we saying?
I'll ask the city clerk to answer the question.
So because you defeated the bylaw, you didn't question the third reading to repeal the bylaw.
We only defeated the second reading, right?
Yes.
We didn't defeat the bylaw.
Bylaw does not receive its reading, it defeats it.
Everybody clear?
So the status of, in my understanding, the bylaw continues to exist while this bylaw is to repeal it. So it continues to be in effect. Okay.
All right. Moving on to 8.2 is the city manager's office. And I look to the city manager if there's anything, it's not on anything noted on the agenda, but anything to add. 8.3 is the office of the city clerk. Nothing noted. 8.4 for the chief financial officer. Nothing noted. Moving on to 8.5, community development services. 8.5.1, which is the 2018 landscaping improvement. Sorry. Okay. 8.1.2, the bylaw 22-2018, subdivision and development appeal board amendment bylaw. To city clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The recommendations of Council grant bylaw number 2018 being a bylaw to amend the subdivision or amend bylaw 24-20116 subdivision development appeal board bylaw first reading. Council recalls this was brought forward as C meeting. The item needs to be changed as results to parts of the MMGA and to bring us to align with staffing and the composition of the subdivision appeal boards.
Any questions or comments? Councilor Thorson.
Question. Is there a theoretical risk that if this one was not done all in 3 readings, that if a subdivision appeal appeared, that we would be in a sticky situation? So basically, it could have extenuating circumstances that would require you to really think on doing this all in 3 readings in one day.
There's always a chance that if we didn't receive we'd be outside the way of legislation. I'd like to Mr. Shanks, who's our planning director, to provide us what the timelines are if there was an appeal received. I believe it's 30 or 60 days.
Thank you. The council.
If we receive an appeal as a third period, certainly we're first of all, it's on the Alberta side, 18-day period, Saskatchewan 30-day appeal period. Once we have application, you know, development permit. We then have a certain amount of time to have appeal occur for that 30 times from the time of the cease proceed. So we do have a lot of time.
So just to make sure, it did go through all three segments, first, second, and then third. We would still have enough time if it has to be the next council meeting, with the situation, we would be okay to have opposing hearings first reading this week. Okay. Second and third next meeting. So I guess I'm losing because I just presenting right now as a first reading only for this meeting. Okay.
Second and third and 14th.
Okay.
I think we're not going to run into timeline problems with that scenario.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. City Clerk?
If I may add one minor point to that, because I always like to add those points. The one thing that we don't currently have is we don't have a named board, so we can't name the board until we have the bylaw. So that does it. I'm not aware that currently we have any appeal pending, but that does extend the timeline of the council should be aware that we don't have a named board at this time.
Okay. All right, any other questions or comments? I'll look to council for direction.
I'm getting lost in the procedure here, Your Worship. Can I just go back a step? I really have lost you where you're going here. When we dealt with the last bylaw, the first, second reading were unanimous.
No,
What is,
not necessarily, so I believe
what's the
Councilor.
difference? You're like,
Vote on all of them? So in the last one, we were asking for 3 readings of the bylaw. So the procedure would be first reading that passes, second reading that passes, and then we have to ask council to unanimously grant and consent to a third reading. If council at that point did not consent to a third reading, then the bylaw would still stand, but we wouldn't move to a third reading. What occurred at the last one is council provided its first reading and defeated the second reading, which defeats the bylaw, which administration now will have to go back and repackage.
Currently, what we have before us, Councilor, if I can add this, is that there's a request for the motion that will hopefully come forward is a request for a first reading, and the second and third reading will occur at the next council meeting, May 14th.
but when you have legislative change, you can't vote against it. The province is legislative. We're doing now. I really get lost. Like, let's turn it down. And say, no, we don't want to do that. Where would you go?
The charter and the MM say that council must have a procedure. Council gets to vote on it. Council votes is under defeated.
How can you vote against legislation? That's all I'm asking.
Well, you're absolutely right, Councilor. You shouldn't. We shouldn't, because that's.
There's a lot of things that make the vote against provinces hand down, but
at the end of the day,
we can't do anything about it. So that's where I'm getting lost. So
I'm confused which motion council maker at this point. So because if it's this one here, I'll ask for first reading.
I know what you're asking.
So I'm confused.
I know all that.
I think it's from the previous motion to information. It is one of those processes just that the other agents requirements to do that. We're following statutes and regulations and in this case it's just the formality of this passing the bylaws.
It's a new word, formality.
Becomes that. As we get some of the other things and influence and taxation as well as actions. So look for directions
The council 2-2-2018 subdivision by first reading.
Second. Any further discussion, comments? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. Opposed? Carried. Moving on to 8.1.3, bylaw 28-2017, land use bylaw amendment. All right, so to the city clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The recommendation is council grant bylaw 28-2017 being an amendment to land use bylaw, the second reading, and then once again grant bylaw 28-2017 being an amendment to the bylaw, its third and final reading. This item came forward at our last GPC, and council did request some clarity on the landfill rates, and at this time I'd like to ask Mr. Cumby or if Karen's available to speak to that.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. So we presented the landfill rates back in December of 2017, and according to, as per Council's direction, we have came back and conducted some additional assessments on the landfill rates, and today we are presenting the three-year landfill rate, which will set the landfill fees for 2018 to 2020.
And that information is in our council package for the rates that should be proposed.
That's correct.
Does anyone have any questions or comments for Karen? Council Torres.
Thank you, Your Worship. No, I want to say everything seems so far. This seems like really solid and working on the numbers to make sure that the revenue coming in is going to be enough to kind of capture the full cost of our landfill, especially for downtown users, things like that. So that we actually capture the cost of operating landfill and deal with post-closure and capital requirements. So, although it's small on paper, a ton of work we're willing to land on the way we have, and thank you, really eye-opening all the from us at one point. You really see that we're going to full recovery, which is fair. Thank you.
Councilor Dodger.
Yeah, I would echo that too. I think some of the adjustments in the numbers initially that reflected a lower rate for out-of-town users makes more sense now. But certainly, if there's a favorable rates for ratepayers who are involved. And the second part is that the last while, I'm not sure because we had this discussion where the change board shows over the talk about the food waste, the number of years that actually takes to break down. And challenges that worldwide experience for one country that's importing waste, sweet using variety systems just to generate energy, a whole bunch of other things. But I think this one is continuing to be a larger force going forward, and then you talk about some other pilot things as well to eliminating the landfill. But I think the more information we share publicly about the full cost that's out there actually have and the potential impact we can have not throwing much waste in this area that should continue to work on this part of the work that we've done and research here.
Any other questions? Karen, if I could ask you a question, which I'll often ask, how long do we expect our landfill to last?
Based on the current that now, it lasts us until
That will be a very good test.
We may have to say goodnight, but again, we have had to look to where that will be. There's going to be a lot of work around optimizing our spaces, so we might even see that further increasing our life expectancy for that.
Last questions? I'll look to council for direction. Bylaw
Move that council bylaw 28-2017 be amended to bylaw second.
Any further questions? Question? Not seeing any. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Council's direction, bylaw.
Council bylaw 28-2017 be amended to bylaw third reading.
Seconder? Councilor Buckingham? Any further questions? Not seeing anything, call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. It's now 2 p.m. It's almost 2 p.m. according to the clock, so I will now move to the public hearings. We're scheduled. Before we begin, that during a public hearing, we ask that you respect the views of everyone here and allow each person their time to speak without interruption. Each person wishing to speak has up to 5 minutes to make a presentation to council. If you do wish to speak, please state your name for the record and whether you are in support or opposed to the proposed bylaw. When you are finished speaking, please remain at the front as council may wish to ask you questions. All discussions of council members, city staff, and delegations shall be directed to the chairperson. Any questions brought forward by the public which are not able to be addressed during this meeting will be done so at the next council meeting. Council will not debate this matter during this hearing. The decisions regarding whether or not to grant the bylaw further readings will be dealt with following the public hearing. I declare the public hearing for bylaw 5-2018, proposed redistricting, opening at 2:01 p.m. I would ask the city clerk to confirm whether or not this public hearing has been advertised in accordance with the applicable legislation and to summarize the purpose of this hearing.
I can confirm that this public hearing has been advertised and notice has been provided in accordance with the applicable legislation. The public hearing was advertised in the Lloydminster Source on April 19th and the Meridian Booster on April 24th. And the purpose of this public hearing is for bylaw 5-2018 being a proposed redistricting.
I will now call upon anyone wishing who is opposed to the proposed bylaw. Not seeing anyone wishing to speak, I will now ask if anyone wishes to speak in favor of the proposed bylaw. I will now call on anyone else who is affected by the proposed bylaw that wishes to speak. I will now declare the public hearing for bylaw 5-2018 closed at 2:02 p.m. Moving on to the next bylaw, bylaw 1-2018 proposed smoking bylaw. I declare the public hearing for bylaw 1-2018 proposed smoking bylaw open at 2:02 p.m. I would ask the city clerk to confirm whether or not this public hearing has been advertised in accordance with the applicable legislation and summarize the purpose of the hearing.
I can confirm that this public hearing has been advertised and notice has been provided in accordance with the applicable legislation. This public hearing was advertised in Meridian Booster on April 17th and 24th. The purpose of this public hearing is for bylaw 1-2018 being a proposed smoking bylaw.
I will now call upon anyone wishing to speak who is opposed to the proposed bylaw. Not seeing anyone come forward, I will now ask if anyone wishes to speak in favor of the proposed bylaw. Those that would wish to speak, please come forward and state your name. And I'll also remind you, you have 5 minutes to present.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council members. I'm Steve Snyder, and I chair of the Legislative Health Policy Committee and the Vice Chair of the Legislative Youth Council. I'm in grade 12 at Legislative High School, and I'm in favor of proposed bylaw.
Good afternoon, Mayor Albers, Council members. My name is Brianna Yampy, and I am a member of the Lloydminster Youth Wellness Committee and the Lloydminster Youth Council. I am currently in grade 11 at Holy Rosary High School, and I speak in favor of the proposed bylaw.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide feedback on the bylaws. and addressing smoking, vaping, and cannabis use in our community. Alberta currently has the most liberal retail and use policies in the world. But thanks to your hard work planning and passing regulations, Lloydminster will not be included in this. Lloydminster youth have been engaged in discussions around substance use, and we have been working on recommendations that support healthy public policy and protection of youth. We have some comments on the bylaws, some questions for your consideration, and we also want to share with you some concerns from the youth of Lloydminster. Here are some of the myths that we have heard from youth in our community. Cannabis helps you focus. Cannabis calms you down. Cannabis reduces my stress. Cannabis helps me be more cautious while driving, and cannabis is not addictive.
The fact that our friends and peers believe in these things is a big concern to us. We think that the license bylaw that charges a licensing fee on businesses that sell tobacco-like products, cannabis, and alcohol is smart and a great investment in helping community agencies provide education and awareness to youth, parents, and adults in our community.
The smoking bylaw. Thank you for expanding the definition of tobacco to include vaping and cannabis. We see a growing number of our peers vaping, and they constantly think it's harmless because there are no regulations restricting it. Currently, students as young as grade 9 are going into vape shops to buy their supplies. The e-juice used in vaping is how the tobacco industry is delivering nicotine to a new generation of smokers. We bought an e-juice that says 0% nicotine on the label, and on the back label it says may contain nicotine. That's kind of ironic. It's like buying a peanut-free chocolate bar, and then on the back it's saying may contain peanuts. How acceptable is that? Test buys of e-juice across Canada found that large percentage of nicotine-free e-juice contained nicotine when tested in a university lab.
Protecting children and youth from seeing people smoke and vape is important because it helps to denormalize use. Congratulations on extending this bylaw to cover public places. I hate it when I take my cousins to the parade in the summer and someone sits next to us and lights up a cigarette. Will the bylaw cover outdoor events like the parade, Canada Day, Winterfest, and events at the Lloydminster X grounds like the fair?
Is there an opportunity to restrict youth under the age of 18 from selling tobacco? Because if youth can sell tobacco, youth can buy tobacco. Youth cannot sell other adult products like cannabis and alcohol. We encourage you to extend that to tobacco as well. If I get a job in a convenience store, a gas station, or grocery store, it does not seem right that I would be allowed to sell tobacco when I, a minor, cannot legally buy it. We have a giant concern. How is Lloydminster going to manage the issue of home-grown cannabis? We are concerned about the youth and children and their access to it. What process will be in place to ensure safety? When we presented to you in February, we indicated a couple of recommendations to address this, and we'd like to add to those recommendations. We asked the City of Lloydminster to require households who are interested in growing cannabis to go through a municipal approval process. This process should include information on child safety, security, water use, electrical hazards, humidity, and odor concerns, and extra considerations for multi-dwelling units and consideration for neighbors.
We have a few questions regarding the current proposed bylaw. Will patios associated with restaurants and bars on the Saskatchewan side now be tobacco and vape free like they are on the Alberta side? It seems like the city will allow for some discrete designated smoking areas. How and where will the designated smoking and vaping and cannabis areas be placed? Can the city ensure that they will not be located within 50 meters of any public trail, path, public event or recreation center, playgrounds, skating rinks, splash parks, outdoor pools, and schools?
I completed the cannabis survey, and I strongly encourage the city to place cannabis retail stores away from our highway corridors and residential communities, and place them in the industrial area. But having said that, please consider the new bowling alley that has just come up in the industrial park.
Again, thank you for the opportunity to present today. Please consider the youth of Lloydminster when you develop the bylaws and be a part of creating a community where kids can grow up to be great.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Is there any questions from council? Given us some food for thought. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I will now call on anyone else who is affected by the proposed bylaw that wishes to speak.
Mayor.
Sir. Okay.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mayor, members, and councilors. So, such a privilege to be here today to speak in favor of this bylaw. And I just want to introduce myself for those who don't know me. I know all of you around the table, but I'm Orly Marin, and I'm a resident of Lloydminster, new resident of Lloydminster, 6 months we've been here, and but in the area for a long time. And I think you know that I work passionately in the community to do just what the kids asked, was create a community where kids grow up great. And so we're very happy to present to council today. You know, I can't speak in less than 5 minutes, so we had to create a 17-page document. And so we wanted to share with you a policy brief that we developed for tobacco-like policies, or products, and cannabis. And so our recommendations are located within that document, and I'll leave with city admin today that policy brief for you. And because many of you weren't on council when we did the alcohol policy brief, I've included that in the package as well. So I know that one of your bylaws addresses the licensing fee to alcohol, and that was one of the recommendations we made a couple of years ago. So I'm here today on behalf of Lloydminster Area Drug Strategy. I'm the chair of the drug strategy as well as the co-chair of Bylaw My Home, which is the action committee for the drug strategy. And really our vision is to create that community where kids can grow up great, every kid, every day. And so that includes substance use and behaviors and bullying and all of those things that impact the quality of life for our residents. And we think that if we create a community where kids can grow up great, everybody's doing well. And so that's really our vision. And so welcome to 2018. We're talking about cannabis. We're talking about cannabis at every table. We're talking about smoking and vaping, and everywhere I go it seems to be our conversation. And so today I just wanted to share with you that although we're talking about the smoking bylaw, it restricts where people smoke in Lloydminster, we're not used to kind of managing drugs as a municipality. We more control behaviors. And so consideration to thinking about the banning of cannabis use, vaping, and tobacco in all the locations that you've outlined in your bylaw is really a good practice and policy, because it also reduces enforcement issues. So you don't have to wonder what's in that thing that they're vaping. Is it cannabis? Is it e-juice? Is it something else? And it also reduces the stigma about what substance people are using. So if people aren't vaping or smoking in public places, then it will have a positive impact on our community, and it reduces the modeling of smoking behavior. So in this policy brief today, we will address the smoking bylaw specifically. We'll also address the cannabis bylaw and the licensing bylaw. So I hope there's some good information for you. And we've been involved in this process for many months already, sharing information as it comes available with your city team and the council. So I don't think there will be any surprises in there. While the policy brief contains some recommendations, I also wanted to draw your attention to just a couple of areas and think about, the kids mentioned that, you know, where will those discrete smoking areas be located? And so we've made a recommendation of at least 50 meters from places where kids can congregate, and also to protect people from secondhand smoke exposure or vapor exposure. In Calgary and Edmonton, there's been a couple of interesting conversations going on where the cannabis industry has actually offered some sponsorship dollars to have cannabis gardens. And so people in multi-unit dwellings, what will the impact be on them when cannabis is allowed to be smoked in their units, just like tobacco? So will the city consider also restricting use of smoking products in multi-unit dwellings? And so cannabis gardens is kind of the industry's way of saying, you know, this is a nice way to allow people to use that outside of the buildings, but I caution you to think carefully about receiving sponsorship or funding from the cannabis industry. And we know that the tobacco industry has a long history of investing sponsorship dollars to increase use of their products. Also the multi-unit dwellings and people working in hotels. So thinking about, can we restrict the use of smoking or vaping in those facilities and really protect the workers who are in hotels or motels working, cleaning rooms from that exposure to secondhand smoke or vapor, whether it be from tobacco, e-juice, or from a cannabis product. And then also, I just wanted clarification in the bylaw around, is there a restriction in that bylaw on cannabis lounges, vaping and hookah lounges? And so I feel like there is, but it wasn't really clear to me, so just some clarification around that. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here today and to speak in favor of this bylaw. I just want to congratulate the council and the city team for the wonderful work that they've done and for sharing that vision of creating a community where kids can grow up great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. Once that document becomes in the city property, it will be made public.
Okay. Oh, absolutely. We're going to post it on our website so anybody will have access to it.
Fabulous. Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Torson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a quick question. So all the questions you asked, as well as your young leaders there, I'm wondering if we could get those sent to our communications team, because a lot of them seem like really good questions that, if you have them, a lot of people will have them, and we can get a way to get that information out there to really address those and say how the bylaw has addressed them.
Certainly, we can do that. I'll send them to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mary. I will call one more time. Is there anyone else who is affected by the proposed bylaw that wishes to speak? I would like to thank all presenters for their comments. I hereby declare the public hearing for bylaw 1-2018 closed at 2:16 p.m. Move on to the bylaw 9-2018, the proposed traffic bylaw. I declare the public hearing for bylaw 9-2018, proposed traffic bylaw, open at 2:16 p.m. I would ask the city clerk to confirm whether or not the public hearing has been advertised in accordance with the applicable legislation and to summarize the purpose of the hearing.
I can confirm that this public hearing has been advertised and notice has been provided in accordance with the applicable legislation. This public hearing was advertised in the Radio Booster on April 17th and 24th, and the purpose of this public hearing is for bylaw 9-2018 being a proposed traffic bylaw.
And I will call upon anyone wishing to speak who is opposed to the proposed bylaw. Not seeing anyone wishing to speak, I will now ask if anyone wishes to speak in favor of the proposed bylaw. I will now call on anyone else who is affected by the proposed bylaw that wishes to speak. Not seeing anyone wishing to speak at this time, I now declare the public hearing for bylaw 9-2018 closed at 2:17 p.m. I declare the public hearing for bylaw 10-2018, proposed community standards bylaw, open at 2:17 p.m. I would ask the city clerk to confirm whether or not the public hearing has been advertised in accordance with the applicable legislation and to summarize the purpose of this hearing.
I can confirm that this public hearing has been advertised and notice has been provided in accordance with the applicable legislation. This public hearing was advertised in Radio Booster on April 17th and 24th, and the purpose of this public hearing is for bylaw 10-2018 being the proposed community standards bylaw.
I will now call upon anyone wishing to speak who is opposed to the proposed bylaw. Not seeing anyone speak, I will now ask if anyone wishes to speak in favor of the proposed bylaw. I will now call upon anyone who is affected by the proposed bylaw that wishes to speak. Not seeing any speakers, I now declare the public hearing for bylaw 10-2018 closed at 2:18 p.m. I declare the public hearing for bylaw 11-2018 proposed business license bylaw open at 2:19 p.m. I would ask the city clerk to confirm whether or not this public hearing has been advertised in accordance with the applicable legislation and summarize the purpose of the hearing.
I can confirm that this public hearing has been advertised and notice has been provided in accordance with the applicable legislation. This hearing was advertised in Radio Worcester on the 17th and the 24th of April, and the purpose of this public hearing is for bylaw 11-2018, being the proposed business license bylaw.
I will now call upon anyone wishing to speak who is opposed to the proposed bylaw. Not seeing anyone come forward, I will now ask if anyone wishes to speak in favor of the proposed bylaw. Arlene.
Thank you. That's kind of a quick turnaround, isn't it? So I just want, Lori Nairn, again from Lloydminster Area Drug Strategy and Bylaw My Home, I just really want to congratulate the City Council as well as the MIN for putting together a bylaw that charges a fee, a licensing fee for individuals or businesses that sell a product that could cause harm to people and does cause harm. And so we really think that the city has done a brilliant job in putting that policy in place. Not many communities across Canada have a licensing bylaw related to tobacco sales, tobacco-like product sales, or cannabis sales. But the one thing that Lloydminster has that you really need to be proud of is you're the only community in Canada that actually reinvests that money back into the community to support education and awareness initiatives. And that's significant. You heard about the myths that the kids talked about, the myths that they have around marijuana use. And so investing that money back into the community can help to dispel those myths, to give people the real facts around all of those products, as well as congratulations on adding alcohol to that as well, because we know that there's a lot of harms associated with alcohol use in our community. So how do we educate the community on all of the different substances, on appropriate and moderate use, and make sure that the youth are getting the information they need to be in a community where they can grow up great and have that support. So congratulations, well done, and thank you very much on behalf of the Lloydminster Area Drug Strategy for your work.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Thank you, Worship. Just one question.
Yes.
There's one part of this bylaw that's been kind of bothering me that I wanted to gather as much opinion on as I could before we get to passing the bylaw. I wonder about fair business practice, and I wonder about how this bylaw is affected by it. With the fees and the things that we are proposing to put on to retailers, does your group have an opinion of that fee, what it is and how it's done? My concern has always been square footage and these types of things where, for lack of a better term, the mom and pop shop that's downtown that has these products as a side effect, you know, or as just something else that they sell, not their main, right? Something else that they sell versus a large retailer, you know, that does do that. Have you guys thought about that or have any opinion on that?
Well, we've actually had lots of conversation about that, because if we look at a tobacco retail outlet, we have 4 in our community, their square footage might actually be larger than what Superstore square footage would be for where they sell tobacco from. And so the square footage doesn't actually work in terms of you know, applying a licensing fee if you're looking at that fairness between a mom and pop and a big corporation. So you could look at something like sales, gross annual sales or something like that, but that gets a little messy. And so we think that it's just fair to have a number for everyone. They pay the same amount, regardless of the amount of product that they sell. And that it's an investment that they're making by selling a product that can cause harm in our community. It's an investment they make to make sure that people have the information they need to use the product appropriately, moderately, and safely. So I think it's a great question, Councilor Buckingham, but I don't think that there's an easy answer to that. And so because we're leading the way in the world around this business licensing, I think that, you know, we might learn down the road from other cities on something that they've implemented and found success with. But right now, even the city of Vancouver is implementing a business license fee that's just a flat fee for anyone who sells, regardless of square footage or the product that they sell.
Mr. Torson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just in your experience, I'm curious as to whether or not tobacco use among youth or alcohol use among youth, is it more a problem of enforcement or education?
So youth tend to think that nothing, that, you know, they can start smoking today and they can quit tomorrow. They don't think about the long-term impacts, the addiction that comes alongside of that, and a product that's designed to be addictive very quickly. And so enforcement can be an issue, but it's really more around educating them on making good decisions around what they do. So educating them, if they're going to drink, how do they drink safely? What kinds of things do they need to know about? If there's no safe use of tobacco, period, right? And so explaining to them around if they're using tobacco for a certain reason, maybe they're trying to manage anxiety or trying to fit in, or they have a lot of peer pressure, giving them some education on other things that they can do to address the issues that they're experiencing, rather than choosing to use a product or a substance. And so the education piece of it is the opportunity we have to really make an investment in our community and about these specific products. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, more or less it does.
You can reword it, because sometimes I
That's
get
fine.
chatty and...
No, that's fine. It's I know I'm supposed to ask questions, not debate. So just generally speaking, I sometimes am kind of, torn. One of the comments of the young gentleman here earlier was that maybe there should be a license or something like that, or you have to be 18 to be able to sell tobacco products. Then if you can't buy it and you're a youth, are you not kind of already legislating against it in a way? Yeah.
So just, real life in our community, we have youth as young as 14 years old going into vape shops and buying their supplies for vaping. And people could say, well, they're not buying e-juice with nicotine. Actually, that's just not true, right? And so I talk to these youth, they show me the stuff they buy. And so enforcement, of course, we can always use enforcement, but we can't be a police state. We really need to give kids good decision-making skills, right? We really need them to start thinking for themselves, do the research. Vaping is promoted as a safe and harmless activity for them to do. They have games where they do big vape wars, right? And so giving them that alternative, that other information, encouraging them to investigate and really check things out, helps kids to make good decisions. And the other thing around the modeling of behavior, when we restrict where people can use products, like a little 5-year-old doesn't know, you have children, and so your kids don't know if a person's vaping or smoking, right? They can't distinguish between, just everybody's smoking, and they have their little Popeye cigars and they're smoking. And so educating kids on how the industry really targets youth. 90% of people who start smoking start before the age of 18. And so when youth are able to sell tobacco, imagine being 16 years old, say I'm a young 16-year-old girl, and the football star comes into the store where I'm working and he wants a can of chew. Am I going to say no to that guy? Boy, it'd be pretty hard. So we're putting kids in a position to sell a product that they can't even legally buy, and they can't do that with alcohol. They won't be able to do it with cannabis. And so we're just asking for consideration that youth in Lloydminster have to be 18 to be able to sell tobacco products as well. And just for interest, 45,000 people in Canada die every year from tobacco use, and 1,000 people a year from cannabis use. So I'm not saying one's better than the other, they're both harmful in different ways, and one causes impairment and the other one doesn't, but they both have harms associated with them. So anything we can do in this community to reduce those harms, fantastic.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
I would now like to call on anyone else affected by the proposed bylaw that wishes to speak at this time.
Push the power button.
Yes, sir. We are dealing with bylaw 11-28, the proposed business license bylaw, sir.
Bylaw 11-28?
Yes.
No, I want to speak to bylaw number 9-18.
All right. We did have a hearing, and I realize you came in a little after the start. If you'd like to have a seat, I will give you the opportunity for 5 moments, if council will indulge me, from that perspective. So, is there anyone else that wishes to speak on bylaw 11-2018? I would like to thank all presenters for their comments. I I now declare public hearing for bylaw 11-2018 closed at 2:29 p.m. If council will indulge, okay, that would be the best way. So I'll look to council for a resolution. We have someone that's attended that would like to speak to one of the hearings that we've just held, but if council by resolution, Councillor Torson.
I move that council reopen the public hearing for bylaw 9-2018.
Seconder, Councillor Baker. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So we'll reopen the hearing for bylaw 9-2018. Ask you, sir, to please identify yourself. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor Albert, and council and administration. My name is John Bennett. I've been a resident of Lloydminster for about 54 years. Anyway, bylaw 9-18, vehicle registration, section 11, subsection 11, and then also 11.12.2. Converting school and K-9 playground zones to reduce speeds from 7:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. I have a problem with this bylaw for the following reasons. Lloydminster will be one of few, if any, municipalities to impose these overzealous regulations. And not that I'm not about protecting children. Number 2, that Lloydminster is a transient population and newcomers or visitors will be unaware of these extended hours in school zones. Number 3, a few times in the past I've asked city administration to post the actual hours on signage that these slower speeds apply. They've always had an excuse why they could not or would not post signage, partially due to different speed limits in each province and possibly partially because of the cost. Now the cost will be borne by unsuspecting residents and visitors by excessive fines. Number 4, a lot of playgrounds and school zones are fenced, yet children can be just as much at risk on normal streets and avenues where the speed limit is normally 50 kilometers. In many respects, this bylaw change is a bit of a cash grab as the city is opposed to a significant increase in children's safety. Number 6, posting the hours at each schoolyard as per government regulations at the provincial level would be a better solution and would also educate the population and inform visitors. And also schools are closed for 2 months in the summertime and so on, so there's a number of other issues that relate. The second bylaw that I wanted to talk to was 83, that's the handicap one. Is that coming up, or can I speak to that at the same time?
Same bylaw.
Same bylaw? Okay. The second item in the bylaw that appears too severe for the infraction is the penalty section 83.17, increasing the fine from $100 to $300 for a park in a handicap zone. 10 years ago, my back pain problem was so severe I could not walk a block or stand for more than 5 minutes. I've since had 2 successful back laminectomy surgeries. During the past 10 years, my wife has also had both knees replaced. Numerous times we would try to park close to a major store, but the parking lots were full, but there were 6 to 8 handicap stalls that were empty. But we had no handicap parking sign and would have likely qualified for one. But many large department stores appear to have delegated an excess amount of handicap stalls as a generous and goodwill gesture. But unfortunately, these stalls in many cases are underutilized. The degree of infraction or hurt caused by someone parking in the handicap zone does not warrant a $300 fine. This is purely a cash grab by the city. The current $100 fine is adequate for this infraction, especially where the perpetrator may be in pain, needing to pick up a prescription or similar short-term activity, but does not have a sign but would likely qualify for one. So going from $100 to $300 is a 200% increase. It's rather overkill, and is one way to, overkill is one way to describe this proposed increase. Hopefully the increase will be reconsidered and left at $100. And I'd just like to make a comment also about cannabis. I've never smoked cannabis, I've never smoked, but I think the fines that you've imposed are excessive. It just, 1,000 and so on, just makes me wonder where we're going with this. Most other jurisdictions that have gone into that have said it's a cash cow, but anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll take questions if anybody wants to challenge anything I've said or whatever.
Councilor Torson, if you have a question.
No, I just had a quick question, actually for our administration while we're sitting here. As far as posting times, do you know if there was intention intention with changing that of posting times on the playground zones?
With the,
The school zones.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, it's directed to the, yeah.
with the school zones, with the change to the photo radar enforcement, where we're funneling money back, that would be something that we would use those funds for.
Just for a point of clarification, because I think that while schools are typically closed over July and August, I know that from a prior world, it was the experience that when a new school was built, it was a partnership with the city, so that the city was involved in creating a playground that was meant for all members of the community. So the playground wasn't restricted just to people who attended that school. So it's typically viewed as a community playground as well. So I think that's more of a clarification around that, but that's the thinking behind it.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions, Councilor?
Mr. Finningham said that it's government regulation that the times are posted. Is that a fact?
Nothing.
Okay.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I would like to note that bylaw 5-2018, the proposed redistricting, is brought forward today for second and third reading only. The other bylaws that have had public hearings today will be brought forward. Sorry, my apologies. So I'd like to declare the public hearing for bylaw 8-2018 closed at 9-2018 at 2:35. So the other bylaws that have had public hearings today will be brought forward to a future council meeting. So they're only dealing with the redistricting, proposed redistricting, and bylaw 5-2018 for further readings at this time. So I'd like to return to the agenda of 7.2, which is the second and third readings of bylaws. I'll look to the city clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have the Southgate redistricting bylaw 5-2018 for the second and third reading. This has received its first reading and has not changed since the first reading.
I'll look to council for direction on the recommendation. Councilor Corson.
I move that council, find it here. The council grant bylaw 5-2018, being a bylaw to redistrict block 37, block 4, plan 5368 northwest within northeast 36-49-1-W4M from DC2 to C2, second reading.
Seconded. Councilor Diachin. Any further discussion or comments? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. I'll look to council for direction on the third reading. Councilor Torson.
I move that council grant bylaw 5-2018, being a bylaw to redistrict block 37, block 4, plan 5368 northwest within northeast 36-49-1-W4M from DC2 to C2, third reading.
Seconder. Councilor Diachin. Any further discussion or comments, Council? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Returning back to our agenda, and moving down now to 8.5.1. I believe I'm showing landscaping, 2018 landscaping improvements. I'll look to City Manager via Executive Manager Stang.
Thank you, Worship Council. This item was presented at our last GPC meeting. Before we have the 2018 landscaping improvements project, and administration seeking that council approve the award of the 2018 landscaping improvement project to ASL for a cost of $604,063.75 excluding GST. In addition, that council approve a contingency allowance up to 10% or $66,406.38 to be funded through the approved capital budget. The city's land division has 2 residential neighborhoods that has been developing for the past several years. Development has occurred enough that landscaping in the park spaces is now necessary. More so, developing park spaces is also part of the subdivision process as required by the city. On April 2nd, 2018, the city issued tender package to 5 pre-qualified contractors. The tenders closed on April 16, 2018. 4 bids were received and reviewed for correctness. The tender amounts summarized in the table below. So ASL Paving was the low bid, as you can see, at $600,064 and $63.75. Project includes construction of asphalt walking trails, landscaping and municipal reserves and roundabouts, installation of park entrance gates, control gates, and perimeter bullards. The project is scheduled to be completed by August 30th, 2018. Council has options to award or ask administration to go back for more information. The budget implications, a total of $903,000 was approved for the project in the 2018 capital budget. The approved budget will be used to cover engineering services, geotechnical services, construction, and the 10% contingency as noted below. The remaining $102,598.88 will be used for other potential land division projects, which include fencing, culvert installation, weed clearing, and snow removal in these same areas. When we put the budget together, just for further clarification, when we put the budget together for the landscaping project, we had considered installing fences in some of the areas that there's topsoil piles, weed control, to get our subdivisions looking in a more favorable manner. Those weren't included in the tender process, so the funds that are excluded from the tender process will be used to fund those projects that were planned for 2018. They were planned projects is essentially what I'm trying to communicate.
Councilor.
Thank you, Your Worship. 2 questions. One, I just want to make sure that the only thing that we are making a decision on is whether or not to award the tender on a particular construction contract.
That is correct.
Okay. And then the 10% contingency, it's only for the construction contract that 10% contingency exists?
That is correct. Under our new purchasing policy, administration can request the contingency up to 15%. We'd like to ask for that up front through the process so that we're all on the same page with regards to that contingency, but yes, it is only for that construction amount.
And one other question I had was just around the funding, I suppose, for this. I understand that it's coming out of the capital budget, but I was kind of under some kind of understanding that land development pays for land development. So is there lot sales that we have had either in last year or the current year that is paying for this? To kind of separate land development from operations?
Thank you. There is revenue being generated through our land division or through the sales of lots that were developed through the land division, which were intended through the budget to pay for this capital. Depending on the amount of sales we get, we are seeing a little bit more of an uptake in our lot sales. There may or may not be enough revenue generated to pay for the full project. What is remaining would come from the capital budget, as all other capital projects approved through council. Yeah, some of the lots are already sold and there is revenue already generated in 18. We just currently don't have that full fund recovered.
I think that's my point, is there's an attempt at least, and through the remainder of the year, any lot sales are kind of kept separate so that this isn't, it's not part of the normal capital budget process. It's kind of more separate business line of this pays for this. At least that's the attempt that we're trying to get out of it.
Thank you, Your Worship. That would be the intent moving forward for sure. Unfortunately, before we made the transition this year to remove the land sale revenue from the budget, many of the lots have already been sold, so the revenue would be still in general revenue, if you want to call that, for this year, which is some of the money we're drawing on. So moving forward, I think the concept you're looking for will be implemented for sure. Unfortunately, we're kind of in the middle of the transition at this point.
Okay.
Councilor Baker. Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question to our management team. Combining the hard and soft landscaping, like other asphalt work with planting flowers, what's the advantage other than one guy gets to look after it all? And I know that one of them are going to be the general, and he's going to take a markup on the other guy's work. So what's the advantage to having those combined in one contract?
The advantage would be that the one contractor is responsible for the construction completion, substantial completion, so that we can acquire our certificates, a construction completion certificate and final acceptance certificate through the city. We could separate out the landscaping from the asphalt trails, from the concrete, from the storm connections that we need to do. We have found in history, or over the past number of years, that it is more economical to tender it to a larger prime than going out and seeking individual contracts for each specific piece.
You find it more economical?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments? Questions? I'll look to council for recommendation. Councilor Patrick.
The council approved the award of the 2018 landscaping improvements project to SLP Limited, Winchester, Saskatchewan, for a cost of $664,063.75, excluding GST, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign and seal all necessary documents. In addition, council approved a contingency allowance up to 10%, or $66,406.38, to be funded through the approved capital budget.
Second. Councilor Patrick. Any further questions, comments before we call for the question? Not seeing any. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to 8.5.2, city manager through to second amendment.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to call up Patrick Lancaster, Manager of Community Support Services, to present. Sorry, Manager of Social Programs and Services.
Good afternoon, Patrick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon, Council. I'm pleased this afternoon to bring forward the recommendations from the Family Community Support Services Advisory Committee in regards to recommended allocations of Sask Lottery's Community Grant Program funding for the 2018-2019 grant cycle. As part of this grant cycle, we received 19 applications totaling a complete ask of over $150,000 in grant dollars. The pool of funds available for this year's grant cycle is $67,222. So our FCSS Advisory Committee definitely had their work cut out for them as far as making some allocations with the funds that were available to them. As per normal call for applications that go to this committee, we posted a call for applications in the local paper as well as online, and to our email distribution lists. 19 applications, as I mentioned, were received in total, and these were then submitted to the FCSS Advisory Committee for review. The committee reviewed these applications based on criteria having to do with the projects having a clear relation to sport, culture, and recreation as per Sask Lottery's guidelines, as well as giving special consideration to projects that support underrepresented populations, have impact on the community, are accessible in that they take efforts to remove barriers to access to those programs, that take into account financial need for funding for this program, as well as community need and a clearly written and thought out budget to support the program. I would like to take this time to thank our FCSS Advisory Committee for their time invested in reviewing the applications This was their first time reviewing and making recommendations for the Sask Lotteries grant. They had significant new material to go over as far as the criteria and the eligibility for the grants, and they provided administration with lots of questions and kept us on our toes as far as making sure that they had the right information in front of them. So today we have 11 recommendations for funding for projects for the 2018-2019 cycle. Should I read from the list, or I believe Council has those recommendations as part of the package?
We do have a part of our package. On the screen behind us and in front of me, so I think we've all had a chance to see that. Any questions, Patrick?
Were there more than this group that applied, Patrick, or is this?
Yes, that is correct. So listed in the recommendations are the 11 recommendations for funding. There were an additional 8 applications that did not receive a recommendation for funding as part of the 2018-2019 year.
I don't need to know the individual groups, but what was the total ask for funding in total? If we, all 18 of them had the, or whatever that number.
About 156,000.
Okay. And I guess the next question I would have is that any opportunities to massage the amount that we get from Saskatchewan Lotto grants, so that's predetermined by the goodwill or whatever will it is of people buying lotto tickets in Saskatchewan.
The funds for the Sask Lotteries Community Grant Program that are allocated to municipalities for distribution are based off of our Saskatchewan population numbers. For the last couple of years, we have been at $67,622. However, I'm very pleased to share with Council that this lunch hour, we received correspondence from Saskatchewan Lotteries Trust Fund saying that as part of our 2019-2020 Sask Lottery cycle, we will be given, or we have been approved for grant funds totaling $81,414.
That's good stuff. Make your job even more difficult. Well, easier because the number of us.
We never usually get that much good information from the government, so we're excited. Thank you very much for that, government. That's appreciated.
So just a follow-up question, I guess, because it's the same one I've asked for the other projects for dollars you get out of Alberta. Just the criteria that Sask Lottery asks, reporting back in, did you meet your goals, that kind of thing, and is it similar in Saskatchewan?
Sorry for clarity, Councillor. The question you're asking is about the reporting guidelines for funding Sask Lotteries programs?
So the accountability at the back end of the project.
So each project that receives funding for Sask Lotteries and is approved for Sask Lotteries must submit a project summary report that outlines exactly what they did, what their results were, and those forms are actually provided to us from the Sask Lotteries program. They also must provide detailed financial information, quite literally down to the receipt level, to account for the funds that they received, and those receipts must be shown to take place during the grant period and before expenses that are eligible under the grant. Our administration team then compiles those receipts and submits them into Sask Lotteries that reviews them once again.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'd just like to make a comment that it's great to see that Sask Lottery is now under FCSS. I know it's been in a couple of different areas, and I don't think that there's a better advisory board than FCSS to have this evaluated. So we feel confident with their decisions.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I think it's worth noting if you look right at the fine details of the numbers here versus the number of dollars that were allocated to dish out through this, you can see by looking at this that the committee had a very tough job to do it. They could write down dollars, where there's one for $5,867. That's using every penny we can in that committee. So it's not an easy job when you've got 19 applications and almost double the ask what you actually have. So they do a good job for sure. I would make the motion if there's any other.
Sir, we would entertain a motion. Thank you very much, Patrick. Councilor Buckingham.
The council approves the following recommended grant allocations, and the council authorized the FCSS Advisory Committee to reallocate any unused or return to grant funds. $10,000 to the Lloydminster Interval Home Society for the LCYC Recreation and Support Program, $10,000 to the Lloydminster Area Drug Strategy for the Lloydminster RCMP Youth Academy, $7,500 to the Lloydminster Roman Catholic Separate School Division number 89 for Youth Sports Explorers and free adult family gym nights, $7,000 to the Lloydminster Air Cadets 186 Squadron Inc. for 186 Air Cadets, $6,440 to the Lloydminster Housing Authority for senior pro health fitness classes, $5,867 to the Lloydminster and District Centennial Commemorative Association for saving and sharing the Midwest televised history, $5,000 to the Libby Young Center Inc. for the summer recreation program, $5,000 to the Lloydminster Association for Community Living for our recreational liaison, $5,000 to the Lloydminster Area Drug Strategy for the Lloydminster Youth Council, $3,415 to the Big Brothers Big Sisters Association of Lloydminster Corp. For summer adventure programs 2018, $2,000 to the Lloydminster and Area Brain Injury Society for Brain Fit.
Secondary. Councilor Monroe. Any further discussion or any further question? Not seeing any. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to 8.5.3. City Manager through to Deputy Manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. This item was before you at the last GPC as well. Before you is the 2018 Street Improvement Program contract selection. Administration is looking for council to approve the award of the 2018 Street Improvement Program to ASL Paving Limited, Lloydminster, Saskatchewan, for a total of $3,083,966.62. That an additional 10% or $308,396.66 in contingency be funded through the approved capital budget. The city issued a request for tenders to acquire the services for an experienced prime contractor to complete all construction activities for this program. The 2018 Street Improvement Program is an annual program that maintains and improves the city's transportation system. The Street Improvement Program repairs and replaces city infrastructure on the surface within the road right-of-way. The program is broken down into three major categories, including street improvements, asphalt trail improvements, and concrete improvements. And the locations for this year's program have been identified on the information report. Some parts of the project were tendered as provisional, meaning the city had the option to include or exclude from the contract submission, with potential for being cut from the program to meet the budget allocation. The following presumed parts have been removed from this year's program to keep it within the approved budget. The 27th Street from 48th Avenue to 49th Avenue, and 54th Avenue concrete sidewalk from 48th Street to 51st Street. Tender package was issued to all four of the city's pre-qualified service contractors on March 27, 2018, and closed on April 10, 2018. 3 bids were received and reviewed for accuracy. The tender amounts are identified on the admin report, and as you can see, ASL Paving was the low bid at $3,083,966.62. The approved capital budget for the 2018 Street Improvement Program is $4 million. In addition, $250,000 was budgeted for the airport taxiway rehabilitation project and was included in the scope of work for this year's Street Improvement Program. The amount, or the account for missed carryover item in the 2017 that came about as a result of delays in settling the crossing agreement with CN on the asphalt trail that was installed along College Drive north of 44th Street. Administration is reserving $123,000 of the $4 million from this year's 2008 Street Improvement Program for an overall budget of $4,127,000, which includes both the Street Improvement Program and the Airport Taxiway Rehabilitation Project. The budget is identified below, or broken out as identified below. Total engineering costs, including geotechnical services, design and construction management for $486,518.96. The construction, which is what we're asking for approval on today, $3,083,966, plus the 10% contingency of $308,396.66, for a total of $3,392,363.28, and additional miscellaneous work of $90,000, for a total budget of $3,968,882.24. An estimated $90,000 is to be allocated to miscellaneous items not within the tender project, which include items like streetlight pole reallocation and other items that come forward. The 10% contingency would be drawn from and is accounted for within the approved $4 million capital budget for the 2018 streets improvement program. I'll pass it back to you, Your Worship, for any questions.
Councilor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just have a question on the 10% extra. I just want to ensure that the decision that we're making is that this $308,396.66 is only for ASL. That would be going to this.
Administration's asking council to approve the $3,083,966.62 plus the $308,396.66, which is an additional 10%. That is strictly for the construction of the ASL project. Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm, as far as the, because you do the request for qualification before to make sure that all the bids are going to be from qualified providers. Is the materials provided in the bids the same quality and level for all three? Just because there's a significant spread between the bids. Is one using the same quality of asphalt as another one or something like that?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't know the full details of what was included in a tender. I can go off experience. ASL is a local contractor. They manufacture asphalt here locally. They provide a better price to place it, obviously with the lower tender amount. So when we do a construction tender, we specify what requirements they are putting a price in on, and then the contractors, it's their responsibility to provide a unit rate base for the specific requirement that we're asking to be put down. So everybody's bidding on the exact same product, and it's their price that...
Perfect. Yeah, I think that was the important part for me, is confirming that the overall product at the end of the day is the same, no matter if you're spending $4 million or $3 million based on my understanding.
Yes, everything's broke down right to including tack coat and those types of things. Everybody bids on the exact same thing.
Any other questions for administration? The City Council for recommendation. Councilor Buckingham.
The council approved the award of the 2018 street improvement program to ASL Paving Limited of Lloydminster, Saskatchewan for $3,883,966.62, excluding GST, and the mayor and city clerk are authorized to sign and seal all necessary documents. In addition, council approved the contingency allowance of the 10% of $308,396.66 to be funded through the approved capital budget.
Seconder. Councilor Monroe. Any further questions or comments? Call for the question. Not seeing any. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to 8.5.4, City Manager, Executive Manager Stein.
Thank you, Your Worship. Final item from my portfolio today is the 2018 Water Sewer Replacement Program Contractor Selection. Administration is looking for council to approve the award of the 2018 Water Sewer Replacement Program to Rustway Construction Limited of Lloydminster, Alberta, for a total of $2,208,622, excluding GST. In addition, administration is seeking council to approve a contingency allowance up to 15% or $342,093.30 to be funded through the approved capital budget. City issued request for tender to acquire services of an experienced prime contractor to complete construction activities for this program. The Water and Sewer Replacement Program, WSRP, is an annual program aimed at replacing and upgrading the city's aging municipal infrastructure. This year's program is to upgrade and replace city pipelines that were built before and around the 1950s, while also improving the roadway and other surface conditions on 46th Street between 50th Avenue and 52nd Avenue, and on 50th Avenue between 44th Street and 47th Street. In the effort to better manage costs and timelines, the 2018 Water Sewer Replacement Program was broken down into 3 phases. Phase 1 being 50th Avenue between 44th Street and 47th Street. Phase 2, with a portion of between 46th Street and 47th Street being provisional. Phase 2, 46th Street between 50th Avenue and 51 Avenue, and Phase 3, 46th Street between 51 Avenue and 52 Avenue. The tender package was just issued to all 9 of the City of Lloydminster's pre-qualified underground contractors on March 26, 2018, and was closed on April 10, 2018 at 3 p.m. The 3 bids were received and reviewed for accuracy, and the total is identified below, with Rustway Construction being low bid at $2,280,662. Based on a review of the tenders received as shown, I'm just repeating what I just said, Rustway was the lowest cost. Considering Rustway's total tender amount, the total budget available for this year's program is recommended a provisional portion of 50th Avenue between 46th Street and 47th Street to be included as part of this year's program. Construction phases will occur. Phase 1 to be completed by July 20th, Phase 2 to be completed by August 20th, and Phase 3 to be completed by September 30th. Council's options are to award or ask administration to bring back further information. The budget implications: the approved capital budget for the 2018 Water Sewer Main Replacement Program is $3 million. The approved budget will be used to cover engineering and construction costs as shown in the table provided. Total engineering costs $281,000 total, which includes your geotechnical services and engineering services. Construction for the project is $2,280,622 plus a 15% contingency of $342,093.30 for a total of $2,622,715.30 for a total cost of $2,903,715.30. I'll pass it back to you, Your Worship, if there's any questions from council.
Thank you, Councilor Torres. Thank you, Your Worship. So on the construction cost as well as the contingency of 15%, is that all for Rustway Construction? In terms of the construction cost, there's none that could be going to...
That is correct. Yeah, the 15%. Yes, the 15% is for construction only.
Thank you. The only other question I had, and you stated this earlier when you were talking about purchasing policy, that you could go as high as 15%. I'm just curious, why is the contingency 15% on this one versus 10% on the other 2?
Thank you. That's a great question. The reason the 15% is the water sewer replacement program typically has a lot more unforeseens or issues that are encountered. We're digging up streets that were constructed back in the 1950s. We're digging up infrastructure, water mains, cast iron water mains, pipes. There's just a lot more unforeseen circumstances that come forward on a program like this compared to the street improvement program, where it's just replacing surface works that we can see. So it's more unforeseen.
Thank you.
So, for clarification, pardon me, Rustway is aware of the contamination in the bid process.
The contamination.
Yeah, because I think you stated there's some contamination in there, soil contamination. and then we hauled off the ridge line, whatever that now is, environmental notification section, right? Small portion of hydrocarbon contaminated soil from the project zone. That's on the bottom of page 3.
Environmental implications, I believe.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So through the preparation for the contract, we, through our geotechnical services, would have hired a company to do drill logs, and if they would have identified any hydrocarbons, that would have been identified in the tender, and that would have been tendered through the process, yes.
So they won't come back to us and say, whoops, you found this now, and...
So the 15% contingency would come in, and we can only estimate based on the drill logs how much potential contamination is, and there would have been an amount specified within the contract, and I can verify that with our engineering team. If there wasn't enough verified, that's where that 15% might come into consideration.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the 15%. I was looking at that, and that's usually one of those things that run away on you. But if they're aware of it at the front end, they would have, their costs would have been a little bit. I'm hoping would have anticipated some of the work that needed to be done as well.
Any other questions? Executive Manager Dodd, we're about to rip up the second busiest street in the city for a period of time. Certainly, I'm sure the contractor administration has conveyed that message, because I think that we're all about to hear a tongue lashing from many people, because right through to the end of July, and I guess that it's clearly stated to the contractor the need for this project to be delivered on time. Certainly the budget, but I think on time or sooner would be the question that the public's going to be asking, that's going to be conveyed to us and certainly to administration down the road here as it goes on. We might as well ask it now before we start the shovel in the ground.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, we do our best to put timelines. That's why we're doing phase 1 first. We've given them a window of construction days in order to complete that. Just to go a little further, the contractor is required to provide a traffic accommodation plan, which would require access to all those businesses. So there will be access to all the businesses along that area. It won't be normal frontage access, but they should have access to be able to fully operate and function as a business. Our emphasis is this year. I know we had a lot of delays in construction last year. We're trying to make sure we're on top of it from the beginning, and want to emphasize that it is our goal to get that street back on as quickly as possible. And obviously there's unforeseen circumstances, longer rain delays than expected, and no such things that will play into consideration, but we will work with our contractor to try and get that completed at in a timely fashion.
Thank you. And I think that's the residents could appreciate. I think that the discussion that will come about is, why are we doing this? We have 1950s piping in the ground, and we are now in 2018. It's served us very well, and if we don't want to have a series of water breaks, we have no choice. It's always a difficult time, and as people remind me, it seems to be the construction zone or the winter zone in Lloydminster, and we'll work with it as best as we can.
Just to add to that, Your Worship, we did look at that street very, very closely and had considered looking at other areas to do. We had significant water breaks there over the last 6 months that is pushing our hands a little bit to deal with the issue rather than let it continue. So.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilor Buckingham.
I can assume we'll be looking forward to a new parade route this year for Colonial Days.
We'll be done
judging by that. Just to make sure that the X was aware of this.
I can't comment whether the Excavation Association was contacted or not, but we will do whatever we need to do to accommodate a parade route.
I see a hand raised from my administration, so it's thumbs up. Thank you.
Director Henning has confirmed that that's already been done.
Very good. All right. He'll be leading the tour with the plow truck this week.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. All right, I'll let the council for direction unless there's any other questions. Councilor Buckingham.
The council approved the award of the 2018 water and sewer main replacement program for Westwood Construction Limited for $2,280,622, excluding GST, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign and seal all necessary documents. In addition, council approved a contingency allowance of up to 15%, or $342,093.30, to be funded through the approved capital budget.
Seconder, Councilor Fagan.
Before I call for the question, any comments or concerns to be raised? Not seeing any? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to 8.6, operations. City manager through to executive manager, Calvin.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have here a request for a decision for the awarding of the proposal for the DART. The council award the request for proposal for the downtown area redevelopment plan to O2 Planning plus Design Inc. of Calgary, Alberta, in the amount of $149,955.75 plus GST, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign all necessary documents. The City of Lloydminster invited the multidisciplinary teams to provide proposals for the city's downtown area redevelopment plan. 10 proponents responded to the RFP. Based on the submission, 3 proponents were shortlisted and interviewed. As a background, as an emerging city centre, the City of Lloydminster's downtown core features rich history, long champions, and an opportunity for growth. To ensure investment, prosperity, and development, a downtown area redevelopment plan emphasizes the vision of a study area, ultimately catering to long-term prosperity. The initiation of the downtown area development plan began in 2014 as a multi-year phased project. 1, foundation; 2, policy; 3, implementation. The deliverables for each phase are preparation of the research findings report, number 2, preparation of the downtown area redevelopment plan as a statutory document for guiding the development of the downtown, and 3, holistic and implementation monitoring plan, which practically tasks timelines to benchmark complete tasks. In September 2015, the city began the process of hiring a consultant who was experienced in downtown redevelopment to help create a statutory document that would be used to guide the revitalization of the downtown area. O2 Planning plus Design Inc. of Calgary, Alberta was successful and proponents for the first request in 2016. However, the city did not move ahead with the award due to the change in council's strategic priorities at that time. The current RFP is based on a more robust scope that reflects the current needs of the downtown. The city administration prepared an RFP with an expanded study area. The RFP was sent out on February 12, 2018, with a closing date of March 23, 2018. 10 proponents from Alberta, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia responded to the RFP. The 3 highest scoring proposals were selected by the Evaluation Committee for review. The tables below indicate the ranking scores, with O2 Planning and Design coming in number 1. I will note that there was a small difference in costs, that the O2 Planning and Design were a little bit more expensive than their nearest competitor, but due to the waiting schedule and the ranking schedule and the interviews, we felt that they were the better fit for us. Our options: award the contract to the highest scoring proponent, O2 Planning plus Designing. The proponent has demonstrated due diligence, competence, skill level, and expertise as outlined in the RFP. The option is in line with the information provided to all proponents in the RFP. Option 2 is award the contract to any one of the top 3 proponents. Option 3, request that administration bring back additional information on the evaluation process to the regular council meeting on May 14th. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Executive Manager. Questions, comments?
Sure, I just, I'm glad we're finally at the spot where I was just thinking in my head here, it was roughly a year ago we were made aware of the DARP, and I think certainly we're in a much different spot in terms of being prepared, frankly, as new council to take this on, and so I'm glad to see that the work has been redone. It's back before us, and I've heard from a number of people in the community as I've chatted, and they're excited about the DARP and the fact that we're on this, so I see this as a positive step for us. We're certainly not at an economic time that's reflecting the boom economy we used to have, and I think any effort to demonstrate to people who are interested externally that we are a progressive environment where open for business, and we have a vision for the city. This document and this process will go a long way to make sure that not only do the residents see this as a great place to live, but other businesses and community members will see this and say, hey, I want to be part of this. So I think this is great.
Councilor Beck.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think the other thing worth noting here is that this is going to be a tool for our economic development officer to go out with. Right? We haven't talked about that a whole lot. We've got that new position in place, and we want to give that person as many options and tools as we can for success. So not only will this speak to development locally, it'll speak to people bringing their businesses here for the long term. So I think we are in a, like you said, Council Badger, in a much different position than we were when we looked at this the first time. So it's another great tool to have in the toolbox.
Any other comments or concerns, Councilor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Is this the same contract as we had a year ago that we turned down?
Contract, thank you, thank you, Your Worship. It is an expanded contract, so the scope was changed. It is the same proponent that was successful at that time.
Did you send that to council?
What, can I?
No, the proposal?
The old one?
Oh.
You're looking for the original proposal, Councilor, that was sent a year ago, the council. Yeah, it would be, I believe it was sent, it would be in the package that we received back a year, but we can certainly dig it up from that perspective so you can see the differences.
Whatever. I'll get a copy from you. And the other thing was, is that the same price as they did last year? How did that work? Downtown Don, maybe I'll have to maybe help us there.
Don can certainly help if he wishes, but I would assume that that the price would be different because there was an expanded scope. But,
yeah, thank you. Before Ronnie took over planning, I was part of the process when we did this. So back a year ago when that project was tendered out, it had a very similar scope to what was asked for. Again, we just took the old RFP document, revised it slightly to include some additional items and put it out to public tender again. This isn't the exact same RFP. It was changed slightly. I don't have the exact particulars around what the planning team had tweaked through that process. What I can tell you is it's not the exact proposal that was submitted a year and a half ago. It was publicly tendered, and these are the results of that public tender.
So it's pretty much the same. I was just trying to get up to speed on what, understand that better.
Yeah, the overall scope of the DARP wouldn't have changed, what the intent of the DARP is, but there were some additional things that they had looked at.
Because that looks like the same company
that it is the same company that had won the award last time. I think their understanding of the project, their capabilities came through in the scoring criteria.
Good, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any, I'll look for direction from council.
The council awarded the request for proposals RFP for the downtown area development plan DARP to O2 Planning and Design Inc. of Calgary, Alberta, in the amount of $149,955.75 plus GST, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign and seal all necessary documents.
Seconder, Councilor Monroe. Any further discussion? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to 8.6.2, on to Executive Manager Rocky.
Mr. Worship, I'd like to call on Director Henning to come forward and present this, please.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the recommendation is for the landfill packer replacement, and the recommendation of council award the 2018 landfill compactor RFP to Brent Tractor for a cost of $655,000 plus taxes, including the trade-in of our existing unit that's up there right now. So the issue is through the equipment replacement program. The equipment is replaced based on hours and years, and this one's based on both. The existing unit is a key piece of equipment to maintain refuse compaction of the landfill. The existing unit has over 11,000 hours on it and is due for replacement. It is a key piece of equipment for maintaining the pit and is used daily for packing. The RFP also had a trade-in factor within it. The RFP was issued March 5th and closed April 6th. We received 3 submissions. Brand Tractor was chosen based on the criteria in the table below. This is the first time we've ever did a trade-in. We usually just purchase the equipment and then try to sell it outright. It's a lot of work to do it. The equipment's not sold locally. We have to send it out to one of the big auctioneers who charge a fee for selling it, or a fee for cleaning it, pick it apart and everything. So we try to trade in value this year to see if it would increase the value of the product that we were selling. So we did an evaluation on the equipment and the process and everything, and Brand Tractor came in at $655,000, including our trade-in. Now we're looking at a 110-day delivery period for this piece of equipment, so things might change a bit. If there's no major breakdowns on this piece of equipment, we will be given the full value that they estimated for the trade-in. So the options are there for council to approve the awarded or ask for more information. The budget financial implications, the 2018 landfill compactor budget was allocated at $820,000. The new unit is coming in well under budget with the price with the trade-in included, resulting in an estimated savings of $165,000. Like I said before, that's pending the piece of equipment when they actually pick it up.
Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. Just one quick question. I don't think I've yet to see until today a 100% total or 100 total score on an RFP. So it dropped down 30% basically to the bottom. I have to assume then that what we valued our piece of equipment at a trade-in is exactly what they said they were going to give it to you, no haggling, no anything. If it hit 100%, it had to be that way, correct?
Yeah. What happens is that when I base my tenders, I base the tender on the equipment that we currently have and we're using, and I expected the other retailers to sell their equipment to me. This piece of equipment here is the second go around for this one, so we've had Bullmag for 11 years now. The service has been unbelievable through the local dealer, and we've been good luck with it. So it was based on that. They were the ones that came in to say piece of equipment that didn't look like it.
Dave, we would have, if we had chosen another machine, the cap machine for fitting, we likely would have incurred some extra costs because do the wheels fit from a Bullmag to a cap? Because, I guess I'm assuming, and it's never an assumption in my role, that we're keeping the Packer wheels that we have, or are we getting new Packer wheels on the new?
No, we're getting new Packer wheels. They were also spec'd with the $10,000 Packer wheel, the same as the last one. So they'll be picking up the machine and taking it.
Just the way it is and the way it goes.
Yep.
Perfect. Any other questions? Councilor Torres?
Thank you, Your Worship. My other question, or my question just around the trade-in is, as far as redundant assets, is this something where a lot of other landfills would normally have one laying around, like a second one, or that would be abnormal? In case you had breakdown, a new one, which is improbable because it's brand new and you have warranty and all that stuff.
Well, thank you. Some of the larger landfills could definitely do something like that. We also have a crawler, John Deere crawler out there that we can use for leveling the garbage and putting a minimal pack on it while it's being prepared.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions? I'll look to council for direction on 8.6.2 regarding the 2018 landfill compactors. Councilor Baker.
The council award the 2018 landfill compactor RFP to Brand Tractor for a cost of $655,000 plus taxes, including the trade of the existing unit.
Seconder. Mr. Torson. Any further questions or comments? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to the agenda, 8.7, I don't see anything for chief of staff. We're good.
Miss 63.
Okay, I'll just work right to begin. 8.6.3, wastewater treatment lagoon desludging.
Yes, Your Worship, I'd like to call upon Manager Karen Delano to come forward, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon again, Your Worship and Council. So in 2017, Council approved a budget of $3 million to desludge the wastewater treatment plant lagoons. The intent of the desludging was to optimize the plant's current treatment capacity and also to prepare the plant for the upcoming upgrades. The administration put out a request for a proposal for desludging the wastewater treatment plant lagoons in February. The proposal was specific on the disposal method, which is the land application of sludge. We were very prescriptive on that method because of the regulatory constraints and land application in Saskatchewan and also in the consumption of airspace if we do landfill it. The other thing that the RFP focused on was the experience requirement for all proponents. We wanted to make sure that we get a proponent that was experienced in this type of work, so we're able to do the work that will meet regulatory requirements. So we received proposals from 5 proponents. One proponent was disqualified due to inadequate experience in dealing with municipal wastewater sludge. Of the 5 proponents, Land Board Environmental Services scored highest in terms of the technical scores, and they also provided the lowest cost. The recommendation for Council is that Council approve the proposal from Land Board Environmental to contract services for desludging and land application of sludge for South 1 and 2 to be allocated from the reduction of capital asset replacement reserve transfer in the amount of $1,685,475 plus a 15% contingency in the amount of $222,821.25 for a total amount of $1,938,296.25, and that the Mayor and Council be authorized to sign the necessary documents. The other options for Council is that Council direct administration to bring forward more information prior to making a decision on the desludging of the wastewater treatment plant lagoons. This will result in a significant delay as timing for land application for sludge is very specific. And the other option for Council is that Council direct administration to delay the desludging of the wastewater treatment plant lagoons. This will result in continuous non-compliance and effluent quality and possible regulatory repercussions.
Thank you, Karen. Becoming a regular. Councilperson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick point of clarification. The score of 7.1 is actually 71%. It's not 7.1 out of 100.
We use the current template for the RFP. Basically, it's a score of 1 to 10. Yeah, so it is 7.1.
Perfect. Only because I was looking at the weighting and everything. Well, 7.1, if that's the best we can do, we should resubmit, but I figured that was the case. The other question I had was, so my understanding of like the sludge itself, that it has some potential value out there. Mm-hmm. So these groups that we're paying them, so this is the cost of removal, and it's kind of netted a bit for the value that they're getting out of it.
The contract that we have out, this cost includes the cost of removal and also the cost of land application. In terms of the value of that sludge, if we want to resell it, I'm assuming that's something that is what you're talking about. There needs to be additional processes that will need to be done on the sludge to be able to make it a marketable type of material.
So just to be clear, right now it's a waste product, not a byproduct, because that would take other processing to get it to that point that we're not spending money on.
That is correct, but the people who will be benefiting from this is actually actually the landowners because there's a lot of phosphorus, a lot of nitrogen in our sludge. But right now, we're not at the point where it is a marketable product.
So just on clarification, and so it'll just be stored on our site or hauled away, or and I was looking for that gap to close for me when you were sharing this information.
It will be hauled away. It will not be stored on our site.
So it's done. They haul it away. We're done with it.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? So, Karen, if I can ask this, you will be back looking. There's going to be some additional costs outside this contract for this whole desludging program, I understand.
Yes, that is correct, and that is for the removal of the aeration diffusers. And part of your package actually also explains that with Landborne Environmental, we don't have to remove all of the aeration diffusers. We only have to remove aeration diffusers for sub 2. So we're also saving costs that way. We're only needing to remove it for sub 1.
And I'm familiar with them, not very well. This company is very reputable. This is one of their main business lines that they do from that perspective. So it's not something that just someone that you disqualified one for that we receive bids from. All do this on a regular basis.
That is correct. And Landborne Environmental is in this business for the last 25 years. And everyone that we have everyone who bid on this proposal actually is very qualified. We made sure that we were very specific in terms of the experience requirement and the qualifications of the proponents providing us a proposal.
Timing-wise, when should be approved by council? When would they execute the contract? Is there some idea of when we can expect they're going to work?
We are looking possibly late summer or fall. As I mentioned earlier, there's only a specific window when we're able to do land application. That's something that we'll need to work with Landborne on figuring out what that specific window is.
Any other questions or comments? I'll look to council.
Council approved the proposal from Landborne Environmental and Contract Services for desludging and land application of sludge for cells 1 and 2 to be allocated from the reduction of the capital asset replacement reserve transfer in the amount of $1,685,475 excluding GST plus 15% contingency in the amount of $252,821.25 for a total of $1,938,296.25, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign and seal all necessary documents.
Seconder? Councilor Buckingham. Any further questions or comments before I call for the question? Not seeing any. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, Karen. All right, we'll move to item number 9, correspondence or information items. All right. Item number 10 on the agenda is the mayor and council reports. You'll find my mayor report for the last month or so attached for people's information. There's been quite a few numerous meetings and events. I did slip away from City Hall for a period of 10 days. I did have the opportunity when I was away on personal time to visit with the mayor of Iqaluit, Nunavut, which was very interesting, meeting her in her office. She was kind enough to find an hour of time to visit, and we discussed some of the challenges that they face. We have a border city, they have a capital city in a territory rather than a province, and some of the difficulties of dealing with the provincial and the federal government in their case, I should say, and the territorial government. So her and I had a great discussion about being at the bottom end of this government cycle. So it was quite interesting. Certainly a very interesting area. I encourage any councillor, any resident of the city, if you have the opportunity to travel to Nunavut. It was a little cool when I went, but it is winter most of the time there, but it was a great experience. Certainly well enjoyed and found people very friendly. Very interesting landscape, rock and water. Mostly rock and a lot of frozen water. But it's hard to find a tree anywhere, so that's just a little different from our part of the country.
Other than that, there's been, everything's noted in my report for the meetings that I attended, but I think we all attended, or a good number of us attended your voice night. I want to thank the residents of the city for coming out as well as they did. Thank you to administration for organizing it as well as attending it. I think people were able to get some great questions asked and answered by the people in attendance. Led to some more information. We had, like I say, great participation from the community, so I believe that might be another avenue down the road for another opportunity when people feel like that they want to come out and discuss things. That's the only thing I want to really highlight from my report. Is there any reports from councilors that they'd like to raise at this time? I'm not seeing any. I will ask if there's any other matters that this council needs to deal with at this time.
I just have a quick question. Okay, thank you. Is it possible to reintroduce a bylaw in the same meeting that was defeated to do first reading? Perfect.
We have learned a lot from process and procedures. All right, I'll look to inquiries from the media.
Thank you, Your Worship. At this time, there are media requests for yourself, Mayor Albers, as well as Councilors Diachuk and Thorson.
Thank you. I'll look to it.
Motion to recess.
Motion to recess. Seconder. Councilor Fagin. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.